Frank Capra directed It's a Wonderful Life in 1946. Returning to Hollywood after spending the war years producing documentary films for the Army. The production emerged during a period when both Capra and star James Stewart confronted profound questions about purpose and meaning after wartime service. Stewart had flown 20 combat missions over Germany as a bomber pilot and returned suffering from what would now likely be recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder. The film represented both men processing their experiences and seeking to affirm values they believed the war had defended. The story follows George Bailey, spanning approximately 26 years of his life in the small town of Bedford Falls. George repeatedly sacrifices his personal dreams of travel and adventure to serve his family and community. He saves his younger brother Harry from drowning, prevents the town pharmacist Mr. Gower from accidentally poisoning a customer, gives up college to keep the family building and loan association operating, and surrenders his honeymoon funds during a bank run. Each choice keeps George in Bedford Falls, where he feels trapped by duty and unfulfilled ambition. The central conflict pits George and his community-oriented building and loan against Henry Potter, a wealthy banker who seeks to control the town through predatory capitalism and exploitation of working families. Capra called the film the greatest film I ever made, and stated in a 1946 interview that he made it to combat a modern trend toward atheism and to strengthen the individual's belief in himself. The production required an elaborate 4-acre set with a 3-block main street, 75 buildings, and 20 full-grown oak trees to create an immersive small-town environment. RKO developed new chemical snow using water, soap flakes, foamite, and sugar specifically for this production, replacing traditional cornflake snow that would have required dialogue dubbing. The 90-day shooting schedule from April through July 1946 was considered long and expensive for the era, reflecting Capra's commitment to realizing his vision with thoroughness and attention to authentic detail. At first glance, It's a Wonderful Life presents as a sentimental holiday fantasy with universal themes about appreciating life's blessings and recognizing personal worth. The film appears to be entertainment-driven storytelling that uses Christmas setting, angelic intervention, and small-town nostalgia as atmospheric enhancements to deliver a broadly accessible message about gratitude and self-worth. The opening sequence in heaven, where celestial voices discuss George Bailey's crisis and dispatch an angel named Clarence to help him, establishes a whimsical supernatural framework that seems designed primarily for emotional appeal. The extended flashback structure, showing George's life from childhood through adulthood, follows conventional biographical drama patterns, building sympathy for a protagonist whose dreams are repeatedly deferred. The surface presentation emphasizes archetypal conflicts and recognizable human struggles that could translate across different cultural contexts. George's frustration with his limited opportunities, his romantic relationship with childhood sweetheart Mary Hatch, his rivalry with the greedy banker Potter, and his financial crisis on Christmas Eve, all function as familiar dramatic elements that require no specialized cultural knowledge to understand. The fantasy sequence where Clarence shows George the alternate reality of Pottersville operates as a straightforward moral lesson delivered through entertaining narrative device. The film's emotional journey from despair to joyful gratitude appears designed to move audiences through universal feelings, with the Christmas setting and angel character serving as appealing decorative elements that enhance the story's warmth. However, deeper examination reveals that It's a Wonderful Life is culture-infused storytelling, where Christian faith and American small-town values are not decorative elements, but essential and structural components that shape every aspect of character development, narrative progression, and thematic resolution. The film operates from explicitly Christian beliefs that treat prayer, divine providence, angels, and heavenly intervention as literally real within the story world. The opening prayer sequence establishes this framework immediately, as voices rise to heaven asking God to help George Bailey. These prayers prompt direct supernatural response, with celestial authorities dispatching Clarence to prevent George's suicide. The entire plot mechanism depends on this religious framework being operative and true. The supernatural elements integrate throughout the narrative as load-bearing structures necessary to character motivations and story resolution. George's desperate prayer at Martini's bar receives immediate answer through Clarence's appearance. George's final prayer, "I want to live again. Please God, let me live again," is instantly granted, restoring the reality he had wished away. The film presents prayer as genuine communication with a God who hears and responds with concrete intervention in human affairs. Removing these religious elements would eliminate the mechanism for George's transformation and leave the narrative incomplete. The story requires the Christian cosmology to function because the entire dramatic arc depends on this religious framework being real. The cultural elements of American small-town life in the 1920s through 1940s are equally essential to the film's meaning and function. Bedford Falls represents a specific vision of American community values built on neighborliness, local institutions, mutual support, and faith-based moral frameworks. The Bailey Brothers Building and Loan embodies an alternative model of capitalism that serves community welfare through helping working families achieve home ownership. George's speech during the 1929 bank run explains this system. "The money's not here. Your money's in Joe's house, and in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Macklin's house, and 100 others." This mutual financial institution reflects genuine American economic structures that functioned as community-based alternatives to commercial banking. The film's moral commentary emerges from this specific cultural context, where traditional values of community, service, and sacrifice compete against materialist individualism represented by Potter. Capra's creative vision emerged from his personal background as a Sicilian immigrant who came to Los Angeles at age 6 as part of a large, poor Catholic family. He described himself in early adulthood as a Christmas Catholic, but later returned to the church and identified as a Catholic in spirit. One who firmly believes that the anti-moral, the intellectual bigots, and the mafias of ill will may destroy religion, but they will never conquer the cross. This spiritual journey directly shaped the film's worldview and its treatment of faith, community, and moral obligation. Capra stated that he made films to fight for the causes of the disenfranchised on the screens of the world, viewing his work as a vocation through which he could affirm traditional values against modern materialism and spiritual drift. James Stewart's wartime trauma profoundly influenced his performance and gave the film its emotional authenticity. It was documented that Stewart suffered from nightmares, weight loss, and emotional volatility during production. The raw emotion visible in George Bailey's breakdown scenes reflects Stewart channeling genuine psychological anguish from his combat experiences. Stewart later described the role as therapeutic and identified George Bailey as his favorite character. The casting brought together Capra's spiritual vision with Stewart's authentic emotional vulnerability, creating a performance that moves audiences through its honesty about suffering and despair, before arriving at the redemptive resolution. The technical execution served these thematic purposes through careful attention to authentic atmosphere and naturalistic presentation. The elaborate Bedford Falls set created a lived-in environment complete with pigeons, cats, and dogs to make the town feel real and inhabited. The innovative snow compound developed by RKO's special effects department allowed actors to speak naturally during winter scenes, preserving authentic performances through live dialogue recording. Cinematographers Joseph Walker and Joseph Burrock used lighting to create visual distinction between the warm, intimate quality of Bedford Falls and the harsh, noir-influenced darkness of the alternate reality, Pottersville. These technical choices consistently support the film's purpose of making traditional community life feel valuable and worth preserving through immersive, authentic depiction. The narrative structure employs a sophisticated framing device that opens in heaven with celestial voices discussing George Bailey's crisis before proceeding through extended flashback showing his life from childhood through the present emergency. This structure establishes from the opening frames that supernatural reality exists and that heaven takes active interest in individual human lives. The story unfolds through George's pattern of repeated sacrifice, saving his brother Harry from drowning and losing hearing in one ear, preventing Mr. Gower from accidentally poisoning a customer, surrendering his college savings when his father dies to keep the building and loan operating, giving up his honeymoon funds during the bank run, and constantly deferring his dreams of travel and achievement to serve family and community obligations. George Bailey develops within and because of the cultural and religious frameworks he inhabits. His character begins wanting to shake the dust of this crummy little town off his feet and see the world, but repeatedly chooses duty over desire. The accumulated weight of these sacrifices leads to increasing frustration and eventually to suicidal despair when the missing $8,000 threatens to destroy everything he has built. George's transformation requires the religious framework Clarence provides. The angel shows George the alternate reality of Pottersville, where Mr. Gower is a drunken ex-convict. Uncle Billy lives in an asylum. Harry died as a child. Mary is a frightened spinster, and the town operates as a vice-ridden nightmare controlled entirely by Potter. This supernatural education enables George to recognize the value of his ordinary faithfulness and choose life with renewed gratitude. Mary Bailey's character demonstrates consistent devotion within traditional expectations. She loves George from childhood, wishes for marriage at the old Granville house, and remains committed through every hardship. When crisis strikes on Christmas Eve, Mary mobilizes community support, rallying friends and neighbors to contribute money. Her character functions as the steady foundation of faith and loyalty. Henry Potter provides static villainous opposition throughout, representing the antithesis of community values through his consistent rapacity and exploitation. Potter never develops or changes because the traditional moral framework reliably identifies evil as incapable of genuine reform. The building and loan institution functions as the central story thread, demonstrating how economic structures can serve community welfare when operated according to moral principles. Peter Bailey runs the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan as an alternative to Potter's exploitative banking practices, helping working families achieve home ownership through mutual support and fair lending. After Peter Bailey's death, George abandons his plans to attend college and travel the world, taking over the building and loan to preserve his father's legacy. The institution survives Potter's attempt to shut it down during the board meeting, endures the 1929 bank run through George's personal sacrifice, and enables the creation of Bailey Park, where immigrant families like the Martinis move from Potter slums into decent housing. The building and loan represents Capra's vision of people's capitalism, where commitment to community welfare takes precedence over maximizing profit, demonstrating that business institutions can function as vehicles for moral good when guided by traditional values of service and mutual support. The contrast between Bedford Falls and Pottersville provides a second key story thread, revealing what community becomes when traditional values are abandoned. Bedford Falls features churches, family homes where neighbors know each other, local businesses that serve community needs, and social institutions built on mutual care. Pottersville transforms the same geography into a nightmare of exploitation, with bars, pawn shops, dance halls, and commercial vice dominating the landscape. The pharmacist, Mr. Gower, who in Bedford Falls remained a respected community member after George prevented his tragic mistake, in Pottersville becomes a drunken ex-convict. Mary, who in Bedford Falls married George and raised a family, in Pottersville lives as a frightened spinster working in the library. The alternate reality sequence functions as moral education delivered through narrative experience, demonstrating the consequences of abandoning faith-based community values through story, rather than didactic preaching or explicit messaging. George's sacrificial pattern forms another story thread, showing how ordinary faithfulness compounds across time to create profound community impact. Each individual sacrifice appears insignificant in isolation, giving up college, staying in Bedford Falls, surrendering honeymoon plans, living in modest circumstances. George experiences these choices as personal failure and wasted potential, believing his life has been meaningless compared to his youthful ambitions. The revelation that Harry Bailey became a war hero who saved an entire transport of soldiers, but was only alive to do so because George saved him from drowning as a child, demonstrates how hidden acts of sacrifice cascade into consequences far beyond immediate visibility. The community gathering at the finale, where ordinary people contribute small amounts that collectively overwhelm Potter's advantage and save George from bankruptcy, validates the traditional framework that measures wealth in relationships and community bonds. The film operates from an explicitly Christian worldview that treats religious claims as literally true within the story world. Heaven exists as an organized realm where celestial authorities take interest in individual human lives and dispatch angels to intervene in earthly affairs. Prayer functions as genuine communication that reaches God and prompts supernatural response. Divine providence operates throughout George's life, guiding events toward good ends, even when circumstances appear desperate. The resolution affirms that faith and community can overcome material crisis, with the finale occurring on Christmas Eve as the community gathers to sing Hark, the herald angels sing, connecting their solidarity to the theological significance of the Incarnation. The film's angelology simplifies Orthodox Christian doctrine for narrative purposes, depicting Clarence as an angel that must earn his wings through good deeds. But the core theological claims about God's existence, care for individuals, and response to prayer align with traditional Christian teaching. The cultural philosophy centers on American small-town values from the 1920s through 1940s, presenting a vision of community life organized around family structures, local institutions, and mutual obligation. The film treats rootedness and local service as genuinely valuable alternatives to individual ambition and geographic mobility. George's repeated choice to stay in Bedford Falls, initially experienced as failure and entrapment, proves to be the path to meaningful impact and genuine richness. Traditional family structures receive positive treatment, with marriage depicted as a loving partnership within defined roles, children representing the fruit of faithful union, and extended family maintaining importance through ongoing obligation and support. The immigrant experience finds expression through the Martini family, who achieved the American dream of home ownership through hard work and community support, becoming fully integrated into Bedford Falls society while maintaining distinct identity. The film's treatment of capitalism presents behavioral critique within the system. Potter represents corrupted capitalism that abandons any concern for human dignity in pursuit of wealth and power, using his economic advantage to exploit working families and control community life through ownership and debt. The Bailey Building and Loan demonstrates the same capitalist system practiced with moral conscience, serving community welfare through fair lending and mutual support. The solution to predatory capitalism is not structural reform or systemic change, but having good people operate existing institutions according to traditional moral principles. This approach reflects Capra's vision of people's capitalism, where the golden rule guides economic activity, affirming American democratic capitalism, when practiced with faith-based ethics, while condemning individual greed and callousness as personal moral failures. It's a Wonderful Life premiered in December 1946 to mixed critical response and disappointing commercial results. The production garnered 5 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director, but won only a Technical Achievement Award for the RKO special effects development of the chemical snow compound. The film failed to reach its break-even point of approximately $6 million, contributing to the dissolution of Capra's Liberty Films Company. Contemporary audiences emerging from wartime sought lighter entertainment and found the darkness of suicide, despair, and financial ruin uncomfortable despite the uplifting resolution. The concurrent release of William Wyler's The Best Years of Our Lives, which won 7 Academy Awards and achieved significant commercial success, overshadowed Capra's more sentimental offering. The film's transformation into a beloved classic occurred after its copyright lapsed in 1974, prompting television stations to air it freely during the Christmas season. A new generation discovered the production through repeated holiday broadcasts, and its reputation steadily climbed throughout the following decades. The American Film Institute ranked it first on their 100 Years, 100 Cheers list of most inspirational films. Modern critics praise James Stewart's performance as one of the finest in cinema history, particularly noting the raw emotional authenticity of his despair sequences. Critical reassessment has been overwhelmingly positive, with contemporary review aggregation showing strong approval ratings. The film's themes of community, sacrifice, and the value of ordinary life resonate with audiences seeking meaning beyond material success. The ongoing cultural impact demonstrates the durability of the film's cultural elements across generational shifts. The values it celebrates through faith, family, community solidarity, and sacrificial service continue finding receptive audiences despite changing social contexts. Some critics have offered dissenting interpretations, with minority readings suggesting Pottersville represents reality while Bedford Falls embodies stifling conformity. But these contrarian perspectives do not reflect mainstream reception or documented creator intent. The film's journey from commercial disappointment to enduring classic confirms that authentic integration of traditional cultural and religious values can create work that maintains relevance and emotional power across decades, speaking to fundamental human needs for meaning, connection, and transcendent purpose. It's a Wonderful Life achieves its lasting impact through the complete integration of Christian faith and American small-town values into narrative structure, character development, and thematic resolution. The film demonstrates culture-infused storytelling, where religious and cultural elements function as load-bearing components necessary to plot mechanics, character motivations, and meaningful resolution. George Bailey's transformation from suicidal despair to grateful embrace of his ordinary life requires the supernatural framework of answered prayer and angelic intervention. The community gathering at the finale, where neighbors contribute small amounts to save George from bankruptcy while singing Christmas hymns, embodies the vision of traditional values triumphing over materialist individualism through faith and solidarity. Capra's conscious effort to embed his Catholic moral vision into popular entertainment created a production that operates from explicitly traditional frameworks, while maintaining strong narrative engagement through romance, drama, comedy, and fantasy elements. The film's enduring popularity across generations confirms that audiences continue responding to its affirmation that individual lives matter to God, that community bonds overcome material hardship, and that sacrificial service creates genuine richness measured in relationships. It's a Wonderful Life demonstrates how authentic integration of specific cultural and religious values can produce work that speaks powerfully to fundamental human questions about meaning, purpose, and the value of ordinary faithfulness. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe. Also, check out our other episodes. We'll see you next time.